down
Oh,
on the way,
okay,
on the
yeah,
way
sure,
home,
sure.
because, you know, that's where
Always
the clothes
better
are,
on
the way.
but on the way here, it's nice.
In progress.
It was updating when I did it.
Okay.
Maybe 2 more minutes.
Sure, because sometimes I'm just like, I have an idea. Yeah, right.
So Tom, do you know if Elder Grant was planning on coming?
I do not know.
Okay.
Did she have another item? Oh, that
Yeah, she
Davies?
has the Davies.
I sent her all this information a couple weeks ago. But she still sent in communication, you know,
Okay.
that she, you know, she just asked, what do I have to do?
Oh, okay.
And I said, well, let me tell you what's over there, just to see where it's gonna go. And so I don't know if she's gonna come in online again, like she did last
Yeah.
meeting.
Okay. Let's check when it gets there.
And I don't know. And I don't know if we needed an item.
Yeah, so you're just. The first two shouldn't take too long.
An item for Carl, you know.
Oh, that's
Because that kind of came from the mayor's office and said he'll be coming to the next meeting.
I
but it
heard
wasn't-
through the grapevine.
Yeah, so I don't know if it's, I mean, it's just a member. It's
Yeah.
not like it's a president or vice president, so I don't think it had to be an item.
It doesn't have to. So, perfect. All right, well, if our fearless note taker is ready.
Everybody's here, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to call this to order here. All right. Well, we'll start here with roll call. First, I'd like to welcome our newest member. We have Tarl Knight with us. Do you want to tell us just a tiny bit about yourself?
Sure, yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you all so much and happy to be here. I'm Charles Knight. I'm the owner of Green Bay's historic West Theater downtown called the Tarleton Theater now for the last 7 years. I also serve as the executive director of Shipyard District Inc., which is the representative nonprofit association overseeing the revitalization of the South Broadway Business Corridor with the city of Green Bay. And I also serve as the chairman of Green Bay Neighborhoods, which helps to support all 47 of our neighborhood associations throughout the city of Green Bay. And so very excited to be here and help to make sure that Green Bay is thriving and safe for pedestrians and traffic of all kinds. So thanks for the welcome. Gosh.
Absolutely, and instead of me just saying everyone's present, I'm going to have everybody go through for roll call so you know who's who.
Awesome, thank you.
Patrick Surratt.
Alder Crazy.
Stephen Larson.
Kasha Huntowski.
Tom Shermans.
I'm Amanda.
Okay, Amanda counts.
I'm Jesse Wellens, we know each other. Welcome, welcome.
Lieutenant Ayers, experiment filling in for Sergeant Hamel.
Excellent. All right, so I made roll call. I need a motion to approve the agenda.
All motion?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Perfect. And then I'm not going to ask for approval of the minutes because I think Tom was telling me there's some updated minutes or questions about the minutes.
Yeah, there was one of the items, and we may have corrected the minutes, but on Stevens Street and on the west side of Green Bay, we had a motion to deny or receive and place on file, one of those two. And yet it was typed up and written that we approved the installation of speed tables on Stevens Street. So I wanted to make sure, you know, when we did the exact opposite, we didn't recommend the approval, we recommended. So I don't think it got to council as on the report that we were going to do it.
Okay.
And then also on Alpine Drive, I wanted to verify that we did not refer to improvement service the cost to install RFBs when we didn't make the recommendation that RFBs are necessary and to pursue their installation. What we did make a recommendation was to install the yield here to pedestrian, make sure that the signs are at the proper locations for visibility, and make sure that the crosswalks were the high vis and.
Because that was the section where the RFP and you'd have a sidewalk that goes to a sidewalk and they don't.
No, that was Alpine at
Oh, that was the
Finger
Alpine
Road,
one,
where
correct.
we denied that request, and
Yeah.
we're gonna look at whether we can put bike lanes in there. And I did make a work order to put pedestrian signs in advance of the intersection, but we just couldn't put the crosswalks there. So the correction for the minutes was to make sure that Stevens Street was a deny or receive and place on file, one of the two, as opposed to approve the installation of speed tables, because that's not what you did.
Okay. Any questions at all? Is there anything you need us to do to decide between those two?
I'll just verify with Beth, who publishes our minutes, that it's correct.
Okay. So can someone make a motion to approve the
Well,
minutes once checked if correct?
Refer to INS, I thought we did, but it doesn't matter now because common council pulled it and they approved it to send it to INS.
All right, because INS is going to come back to me and say, we need approval from Traffic, Bike, and Ped for the installation of RFB, and we didn't really approve the installation of RFB. I guess we did approve, request INS to see if funding is available to put one in, which is
Right.
a roundabout way of saying you want one there. But I am INS I do this work for traffic, and I do the same work for INS.
Yeah.
So,
It's coming.
yeah, it's coming. I guess I'll just take new pictures of the relocated signs, the installed hopefully by the next INS, the yield here to pedestrian and the tiger markings or the tooth markings for yield indication are done over there in Huron Road. And then it's just kind of to monitor it, because we just installed those last fall, you know, and jump them up to an RFB was kind of a quick jump, but, all right.
A motion to approve the minutes.
Motion to approve the
Revised minutes.
I'll make that motion.
Okay.
One second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Perfect. Now we're going to move on. We have Lieutenant Ayers here in place of Sergeant Hamel to give us our updates.
Alright. Sorry, I'll just closed here. Alright. Traffic safety plan, obviously the traffic safety plan is put out every month by Sergeant Hamel. Goal of reducing crashes, property damage, injuries, and deaths in the city of Green Bay and on City of Green Bay's roadways. July, this is the results for July's crash data. Looks like it's pretty much trending to the normal numbers here. So what I have here for totals of injuries, property damage, hit and run, or fatals, there are 0 fatals on the roadways here. Our total crashes appears to be about 245. Sorry, I'm kind of guessing at this right now because the specific numbers aren't in here on this chart right now. I'm not sure why they didn't get in there, but it was an accident. So the traffic enforcement. The number of traffic stops done in July of 25 was 802, 697 citations written, 552 warnings given, 37 OWI arrests for the month of July. Wanted me to report on the OWI task force and local alcohol enforcement dates that are going to be happening in August. There's quite a few of them. There's a bunch of grants that he has to run out for the rest of the year. So looks like there's going to be August 1, 2, 8, 9, 15, 16, 22, 23, 29, and 30 for some OWI task forces. Traffic complaints. Our traffic complaints are one of our largest complaints at the Green Bay Police Department. And so as such, we do everything we can to try to facilitate those complaints and see what we can do to come up with some solutions. Sergeant Hamel has been utilizing a data tracker that basically kind of tracks vehicle data to see what the larger areas of speeding in the city are. So over in District A, let's see here. It looks like the far western portion of West Mason, which kind of going out into Oneida there. District A has has a bunch of very small pockets of speeding. And what this is doing is he's looking at the 85th percentile, basically for people that are going 10 and over. So he's really pulling a large set of data. It's like 15%, a large set of data for people that are going 10 and over, and it turns out that these are the numbers. So it's not as large as a lot of people tend to think that it is for speeding, but we still try to do something about that, obviously. So there's a lot of small pockets in the Adam district, which I'm not able to see because this is a small map. It's much easier to see the Bravo district, which is the Oneida and towards the river. They've got Ashland Avenue, basically south of this would be Walnut. So, and then that whole intersection there, Walnut, and then a little bit on Atkinson Road up here. So, the David district, which is the far east side, most of the concentration is the East Mason, east of Main Street, where it splits there. And then Charlie district, which is the downtown area, mainly small pockets. It's like a little bit of East Shore Drive between Webster and Lakeside Place, and some of Bay Beach Road there. There's a bunch of small pockets there as well. So he is having the traffic officers concentrate on those areas to try to get those numbers and try to get the results that people would like to see out of the police department. Our enforcement priority areas are essentially where, they're the highest likelihood of crashes in the next 30 days. Those areas would be Military and Mason, University Ave and University Way, and then Main and Mason Street, which is what the numbers show. That's all I have.
I have a question.
Sure.
Is traffic fully staffed now?
We have, let's see, no, we're not fully staffed. We have Sergeant Hamill, we have Wiki. Yeah, we've got 4 people in traffic. Honestly, I think that might be fully staffed for traffic, and then they're asking for additional assistance from the other units that are within the community services division, which is where I'm at with lieutenants. So sometimes depending on the situation, if it's a high likelihood date of traffic incidents or that we need high traffic saturation, then we pull from other units and other departments throughout the area. So that's for right now. Our traffic numbers, I believe, are fully staffed for the moment. We're currently looking at hiring, I think we have another person on the waiting list as of right now to gain an extra person, so.
Well, that'll be good.
Oh, great.
All right, thank you.
Any
Sure.
other questions at all? All right, otherwise can I get a motion to receive and place on file?
Full motion?
Second?
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
All right.
Any opposed? Excellent. Our agenda. The initial request, consideration with possible action on the request by Alder Jennifer Grant for a speed study to be done on Davies Avenue on behalf of a resident.
Yeah, this is what I presented to Alder Grant, and she shared with that constituent. And this is coming right from that same program PD bought, which is, I can't remember what it is, US Scan, Urban SDK is what it's called. And basically what it does is it somehow compiles data from devices and or computers in your car and relays that. And this thing picks it up, and it picks up about 40 to 50% of the traffic. It doesn't pick up all of it, but it'll tell you what it knows is that as its ADT, and then it breaks it down by speed. So I broke it down, and it does it by segment, so every intersection there is, you get that little segment, then the next one. So Davies, I broke it down into 4 segments. The speed limit is 25 for the entire length. This last little section 1 has got 1,100 vehicles because it feeds Nautical, feeds into Davies, feeds into this, so you can expect that one last connection to Nicolay being the highest volume. The average speed was 19 to 24 miles an hour. The 85th percentile, which is what most all drivers are driving, you want those, the higher ones, but it was still, everything was low. So I said, PD wouldn't probably go out and put up a board and do special enforcement on a street like that, because they would glance at this software first and say, well, it's in compliance. But like almost everybody will call up, this data also shows the table fastest. Well, there was somebody going 48 in almost every one of the sections, but one person, once all the data gets collected and reduced down and shows you that it's still 24 or 26, there's just a few, people that are really violently abusing the speed limit. So I didn't think there was anything. I said, I'm just gonna wait for you guys to tell me whether you want me to collect road tube data, which is basically going to be a little bit more accurate than this, because it's only getting you 40, 50%. So if I said everything is doubled, it's still, the numbers are the same. I don't expect my tube counts to find more speeders or less speeders. So I don't know what more of collecting data along Davies is going to do for her, or for this constituent who they proceeded to put the communication in after I gave them this chart. I emailed it to her and she said, can I share this with them? And I said, sure.
Can we see it? Is anyone online?
So when you shared that information with the Alder, did she want us to go forward, or did she say anything to you?
Well, she just still put in the communication, and I said, well, I'm not sure
Oh,
what
she
I would
put it-
do
yeah.
with the communication unless you guys direct me to do something more. There's nothing, this is a low volume residential street. There's a lot of people in that neighborhood or in that district they're kind of worked up about the 2 larger developments that are gonna occur over there. One on the other side of Red Smith School, and the other location is, I had this all loaded up, so I didn't have to do this. It won't be affected by the development, but this is the other development that's gonna occupy all this brown space. And they'll come out onto these 2 streets, and there'll be a new roadway coming into Nicolay. And then this is a creek, so nobody crosses that. So this is Davies. And it's a typical street. The speeds aren't that high according to this glancing look. It's a curved road, it's not a straight grid pattern street like you would see in the downtown in the old developments of the 40s, 50s, 60s. So it really has all the features that you'd want on a street to generate some calming. I think there might be a little bit of elevation change out there, where it's not a big hill like Deckner, Alpine to Dan's, but it's.
Well, from the data that we see, I would suggest we just receive and place and file, so.
Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, we'll move on to the next one. Consideration with possible action on the request by Alder Joey Presley and Scott Sowell, somebody's up here, to study the need for a high visibility crosswalk at the intersection of Reber Street and North Baird Street. Alder, would you like to say anything on this one?
Sure. So Mr. Sowell, is it Sowell? Soul, Mr. Soul, approached me with this. He's the safety manager for Concogs, the business over at that intersection, and he said that there's been people who work there as well as people who live in the neighborhood will cross at this area that he pointed out. fairly often. I think you guys have a map, and you have a view of.
Yeah, I do have some copies that might help illustrate kind of what I'm looking at.
Can I get a motion to open the floor? Second. And if you could state your name and address.
Sure, Scott Soul, Safety Manager for Common Cogs, and we're at 1367 Reber Street.
Perfect. Come
So
on up.
it would, I figured this would be a little more helpful
Love
to,
material.
I don't know if I have enough.
Oh, that's
copies for
okay.
everyone, but
Share with you.
share that.
I was gonna say I have one, so. Sure, yeah.
Perfect. You guys are good. Anyone?
You shall need one for the minutes.
Oh, sure. Great. Well, I appreciate the opportunity to speak to you guys. Like I said, I'm the safety manager for Common Cogs. I've been there for about 2 years, but I've been safety here in Green Bay for various companies for the last 19 years. So I do have a little experience in dealing with some of this stuff. What you're seeing there is actually a diagram that we use at work. We changed the forklift pattern because we were entering out of the building, onto the sidewalk, onto Baird. So the dashed lines that you see are really company related. I guess what I would point out to you is kind of the ugly yellow lines that I kind of drew on there. I'm no IT guy. But this is kind of my proposed thoughts just in terms of crosswalks. So we have approximately 65 employees. We have all 3 of the buildings there. 1367 is Reber, and then we have 1128, and then 1120 our address for Baird Street. And so we have employees constantly back and forth in and amongst the buildings. We have various departments, fabrication, whatever. But we have a really unique challenge in the fact that we're kind of plopped right in the middle of a residential neighborhood. And in the course of the time that I've been there, coming up on, like I said, 2 years, I personally have noticed just, it's like a drag strip on Baird Street, and I'm not exaggerating when I say that. I have concern for our employees, I have concern for the folks in the neighborhood. And so I thought, you know, to give it a shot with the group, just in terms of what the possibilities are of putting a crosswalk, or crosswalks plural, there. So really what I've outlined there, the 2 that would be crossing Baird Street would take care of 1128 building and then also 1120. I don't know if that diagram does it justice in terms of the amount of distance, because it would make sense to have 2 of them there. And then the one that's going across Reber Street would be kind of more for the citizens and the folks that live in the neighborhood, because I've noticed quite a bit of folks that live in the neighborhood walking and crossing that. There are a lot of kids in the neighborhood. So I mean, I just have a lot of concern with the kids that are in that neighborhood. If you take like the top view of that map, I have a yellow dot. I also kind of want to throw in there something for the citizens. So there's a large trailer court that's right there. That is a bus pickup point for kids going to school. Obviously, school's right around the corner. When I look down there in the morning, there is a massive amount of kids, all unloading onto the school bus. And so, like for down there, I just kind of feel like, blinking lights or bus loading area or something, school bus zone, something to that effect. Right now, there is absolutely nothing down there. And so, as I kind of looked at everything as it concerned our building, our employees, and then also the neighborhood, I thought I'd just kind of throw it all in one kind of shot there. So really, it's just a request to have crosswalks put in. I did do kind of a quick little look-see around our neighborhood. So when you look at Green Bay Packaging over on, I think that's Rasmussen, they kind of have the same thing. So we do park over on the 1128 and 1120 side as well. well as behind 1367. So like Green Bay Packaging, they have crosswalks going across, I think that's Rasmussen, and flashing lights. And then a little bit further down the road, you have Procter & Gamble that also has that too. Now, I'm not saying that we have 400 employees or anything like that, but it's surprising how busy it is over by us and the amount of traffic, pedestrian traffic, our employees incur in a day, kind of traversing between the buildings. So there are examples of other companies that are, basically in the neighborhood that have that, and so I thought, I'd give it a shot and present that to this group for your consideration, which I do appreciate. I guess really that's kind of the long and short of it. Like you said, Baird Street, like it is ridiculous. Pretty surprising actually, but more so from the north heading to the south, because you kind of have a lot more. You have a longer of a run. I believe it's probably 25 on that street. We're going a lot faster than that. And like I said, our employees and the folks that are in the neighborhood, a lot of people walking dogs, a lot of people just walking or biking, and then that group of kids, I really do have concern down there because it's a large group in the morning, and then in the afternoon, obviously, when they're getting out. Do something down there with flashing lights or high-vis, school zone or some bus zone, loading zone or something. I think that would be great for the neighborhood. So, I don't know if there's any much more than that, but those are just my thoughts that I had there in terms of as I eyeball the situation that we have. So.
Thank you. Any questions at all?
Any questions at all?
I just have a really brief question.
Sure.
I would look at this street and assume this is the case, but I'm going to ask you because you're here. I assume there's probably not a lot of people parking on the street along Baird over here.
No.
It's usually probably pretty wide open.
It's pretty wide open.
Which I imagine leads to, when streets have a lot of cars parked on it, it tends to slow the traffic down, but I guess that's probably not the case here.
I smell what you're stepping in there. It's a little inviting maybe to some. We've had problems with folks going into our parking lot between 11:28 and 11:20 in that picture, coming in and doing Cheerios in our parking lot. It just must seem inviting to, I don't know, kids these days or something.
Yeah.
So.
It's definitely one of the things that that one of the recurring themes that I think we keep seeing here. If I could wave a magic wand and change a bunch of streets, I would, and I would change them by making them narrower. Because when you have a ton of space, for parking ostensibly, but parking isn't really needed in that location, then it creates conditions like this. I know that I don't have a magic wand, so I can't do that.
Yeah.
But I do want to bring these conversations forward that in general, a lot of the streets we have in Green Bay are overbuilt for their purpose, and it seems like a great example of that. So I appreciate you bringing all of this in and answering your questions. So that's all I have.
If there's no other questions, can I get a motion to close?
Oh,
You have one? Okay.
So, do you have an idea of what kind of forklift traffic you have? I mean, are we talking forklifts crossing the street a half dozen times, or
In a given
40
day?
in a given day, or is it 40 times, or is it?
Yeah, that's a really good question. It's definitely a few times a day, and it certainly can be more than that. Countercogs has grown tremendously. Like I said, I'm going on about 2 years now, and I started when I started, I was employee number 44, and we are up over 65 right now. There's a tremendous amount of growth, and that's a really actually a good point for future. I really feel like we're going to continue to grow, adding employees and more people and more traffic and that type of thing. Answer your question, maybe a half a dozen times a day. We also have preferred contractors, so the equipment that we build are what's called RTOs, they're regenerative thermal oxidizers, large pieces of equipment. And so when we're ready to move those out or bring in the old ones that we refurbished, we have semi-traffic crossing to load into our buildings and offload. So again, even flashing lights are something to, just warn people would make sense. But yeah, and so I don't want to get it confused. I mean, that's a good point. But the diagram that you're looking at is a procedure that we created at work for the forklift traffic, because we were going out directly into the sidewalk and bare, and I thought, pedestrian v forklift is going to happen. So we changed it to a clockwise pattern in which we come out of 1367. You can see that yellow line to go to the other buildings, and then but you can enter into the building in the way that we used to come out.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
Okay, thank you. And I'm assuming then the majority of your employees are in 1367?
That's really not true. In fact, it's probably pretty even. We just moved into 1120 here in March, and that's we moved several departments over there. It's probably fair to say we roughly have maybe a little bit more in 1367, but at least 20 folks over in the 1120 that you see, and there's maybe a little less than a half a dozen in 1128, which is a fabrication shop.
And bear with me here, but, so the 1367, do all your employees park at 1367, or are they also in 1120?
Yep, okay, so yeah, no, we do park between 1128 and 1120. So actually,
Okay, so you have,
yep,
you have employees parking between 1128 and 1120?
yes, we have, but the vast majority park behind 1367, where you see the yellow
Okay.
dash line.
Okay,
That's I think an older overhead shot.
okay.
So in 1120, you see that kind of the darker roof.
Yep, yep.
That's no longer there.
Okay,
So that building burnt down a couple years ago.
that's used for parking then?
That is actually our loading area.
Okay.
And as we enter into the shop part, over on the corner on Baird and Eastman is the entrance into the office. So we kind of converted that into conference and offices, and so all the meetings of any substantial meetings go on over there. So we have customers, we have vendors, things of that nature, frequently between 1367 and 1120.
Okay, thank you.
I was going to ask virtually the same questions, but Commissioner Sorrell beat me to it. The pedestrian v forklift incidents, I was just curious if there's been anything.
No, thankfully.
Yes, okay.
But as a safety manager coming on board, it was one of the first things I noticed was oh my God, we're going out like this.
Yep.
Yeah.
And so we've installed safety features out there in the fisheye lens mirrors that are posted at the alley that runs behind 1367, and then coming out, which you can see is door 7. So at least we have some visibility around the corner, but we're never entering out that way. We're always going in.
Yep. Yeah. The merger of residential and industrial areas is always interesting. If you were to give an estimate, do you know if you have a percentage of employees that are within walking distance? I'm just curious, if there are any residents in the area that are also employees who may. I know there's a whole lot industrial, the companies that are over there.
Yeah.
It's actually 3 blocks off of where I live too, so I
Well.
can attest that Baird can be extremely crazy.
Yeah, yeah. I don't. No one comes to mind.
Okay, all right. I was just curious.
Yeah, in the immediate neighborhood. Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
But then you're familiar with what I'm talking about with the
Oh,
trailer
yeah.
court and the entrance to that. And there's also another one. I worry about that a lot with the kids. There's a lot of kids that
Yep.
are in that area. So.
Yeah. All right.
Any other questions?
And Tom, what is the school in proximity to this?
And the closest
believe there's a
Nicolay.
private.
University.
There's a
Yep,
Nicolay
on
there.
University.
Nicolay
Yeah.
will be here.
That's the one I
And I
assume.
think
There's a.
I don't know what kind of school,
Yeah,
if
St.
anything
Peter
is
and
over
Paul.
at
Is it
St.
St.
Peter
Peter
and
and
Paul.
Paul?
The Boys and Girls Club, St. Peter
Yeah.
and Paul.
Yeah, there's a Boys and Girls Club there,
Yeah.
maybe a parochial type school, and,
And then there's the park. you know.
Yeah.
yeah, that's right around the corner
Yeah, 'cause
from,
Fireman-
well, right outside
yeah.
kind of our building there.
Any other
In
questions?
the past, these two buildings used to be connected, and there were people walking back and forth here, but, you know, what was it? Russell
Factory?
Metals, I can't remember what it was named, but it was a machinist shop before you guys took it over.
Oh, in the, right on Eastman and
Right,
Baird?
the here
Oh.
and here, these were
Yeah.
they were both owned, two times there were two different machinist shops, and then one bought out the other.
Yeah.
Now they're both gone. I don't know that they're gone, they're just not in this neighborhood anymore.
Yeah, I know Tweet Garrett had the building 1128, there's a Renard machine maybe.
Renard,
Yeah,
that's
it could
it.
have been.
Renard Machine used to own this building, and this one.
Yeah,
I don't know, I think they just moved out into an industrial park, or, you know, they just probably expanded beyond the
oh, okay.
limiting.
Yeah, so the view that you have there is like probably a much more current one, because you can see the photo that you have, you can see the building that kind of jets out from 1120, which is no longer there here. Right.
So this building is gone. I think on some of these aerials, depending on which ones you pull up, they'll show you which, you know, they'll show you different. No, it looks like, is it K&K was there?
Yeah, that's 1128.
Oh, that's you.
Yeah, so that building is painted now and it matches 1367, so it's a little, it's much more. But, you know, we try to be certainly good neighbors. You know, keeping in mind that we're right in the middle of a residential neighborhood, and yeah, there's an idea of some of the equipment that we build.
And that's evidenced by you being here today and bringing this before.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I mean, I couldn't, you know, I couldn't really, might as well give it a shot, you know, because obviously, I have a concern, but like our employees have a concern, right? And I'm concerned about the neighborhood and what's going on there, so. Yeah, so that building must have, this photo must have being built after the fire, so there was a fire in that building several years ago, from what I understand.
Motion to close the floor.
I'll motion.
Second?
Second.
All right,
Thank you.
thank you.
So there's no sidewalks?
There are no sidewalks. And it'd be, well, there's a short section of sidewalk right here on Reber Street coming down, but there's a sidewalk right adjacent to the building here. you know.
Correct.
But no sidewalks, we just dealt with this at the last meeting, so there's no
Sure.
sidewalks here, no, you know, from that street
Yep.
to that, and you'd have some here. And this is probably where you have your mirrors installed, so you can see as you pull out,
Well,
or maybe it's,
technically on a telephone pole.
Pull on the
Yeah.
phone.
So,
Green Bay Fire did just come and do their annual inspection, and I did actually like it. That cool. Yeah, they're like,
yeah.
we don't see a problem.
Public service wouldn't say the same, but
Maybe
we
not.
just don't ask them and we don't tell them, so.
But they've been there.
Yeah.
This year, so they didn't say anything.
The worst that can happen is
Yeah.
they say take it off.
But the main thing is but also that alley is a public alley. That's
Yes,
not ours.
no,
And so, you know, it wouldn't be just for us, but we want to be able to see around that corner.
right,
Because granted, there are no sidewalks there with the grass, but that's where people walk. They come down and they hit the sidewalk, and they walk on the other side without sidewalks, so.
no, I'm sure they do, I'm sure those same people that you see crowded up in the morning, all those kids in that trailer park also go down to the park. And we'll get to, you know, some of the examples that you had brought up, You know, the first thing that we did for George, or for the one on Radisson, over on Leo Frigo is,
Oh, Radisson, yeah.
yeah, is to do two things. They had to, the pedestrians were coming out, kind of like they do at TNT Crust over on Elizabeth. They come out of the parking lot and they use the driveway. The driveway is the crosswalk, or the way to get from one side to the other.
Yeah.
Well, here, we told them, no, you can't do, you know, we can't mark a crosswalk unless we have an ADA ramp, you know, detectable warning fields, it's gotta be built to a standard.
Okay.
So they said, all right, we'll separate. And they have more vehicles coming out and going over to Webster than they do going towards Quincy. So
Yeah.
they created this walkway into their parking lot, eliminated the parking that was here, and then we installed signs. Their safety manager came back and said, somebody's going in the outside lane or the other lane, let's make it. And this is concrete, so it's a little bit different than your road. Your road's 36-foot clear asphalt, where this is 40-foot, you know, two 12-foot lanes and then 8-foot outside parking lanes.
Sure.
And then they paid for the RFPs to be installed, but in order to do that, they had to install this sidewalk, you know, and that's all the things that you're lacking over there. There'd have to be sidewalks from that street to the north,
Okay.
probably all the way down to Eastman. That's just to paint a crosswalk and to have the ramps, because we can't have a legal crossing at a driveway apron.
Yeah, that makes sense, and that was something I probably thought of too, like, I don't know. So in lieu of that, I mean, like high-vis signs that are just popped in, might be another alternative.
I could put,
Flashing
we
light.
could put pedestrian signs, just a simple pedestrian signs. The pedestrians are already walking in the street, they're crossing, and you put one burner, and you put one just north of Eastman going northbound, and just south of Reber, just to say pedestrians are in this area, a little bit more so than any place else.
Yes.
And that's really all we can do, unless the alder, or you got the alder to request sidewalks to be installed, like I show here on this diagram.
Yes.
And now that I know that a lot of your crossings are even further to the north, Reber, we'd have to go up to Burner, you know, so sidewalks from Burner down.
Sure.
And then once you start with sidewalks, it's almost like, where do you stop? Hey, these kids up here at the trailer park are walking the street, and then they get down to Reber and they can jump over onto the sidewalk. And,
Yep.
you know, and when the argument is the traffic is going so fast, it tells me that we need sidewalks to get the pedestrians out of the roadway. And there is a lot of residents, this is the, go back to Google.
Is there such thing as, you know, just signage with the pedestrian that, you know, might have a blinking light with like a solar panel to it, where you don't have to run electrical to it? Is that even?
Well, that's what those RFBs are. It's a solar panel, you know, but that's a pedestrian, we only use those at crosswalks. You know, where there's a paved marked crossing, we don't just put a flashing beacon in a section of road and say, there's pedestrians here.
Gotcha.
You know, if that's the case, then we say, well, let's first get some sidewalks.
So the only suggestion that we can really do at this time is adding the pedestrian signs?
Yeah, adding the pedestrian signs at this time, you know, when you're working with your employees on how to properly cross, it's.
Well, they're well
Yeah.
informed, well aware, yeah,
Yeah, I think this might be a good time. I would like to, talk about we do have a traffic calming policy. So the neighborhood traffic calming policy is kind of a mechanism by which it's intended for more, residential neighborhoods. If you have a bunch of neighbors that get together and sign a petition that says, hey, we've got a speeding problem in our street, there's a number of interventions that could hypothetically be done. This policy is rewritten recently, so it's saying hypothetically, but it's generally a mechanism by which you take a bunch of people in the neighborhood, sign a petition that says, hey, we got a speeding problem, and eventually, if that speeding problem, which it sounds like you have to some extent, eventually could result in things like speed bumps and speed tables. There are things you can make the street narrower, like at a choke point, so people have to slow down in order to get through the street. You can add chicanes, which are make the street curve a little bit. There's all kinds of things that that could be done to slow traffic down. And I wonder, since crosswalks seem to be a thing that is harder to do, you know, in the absence of sidewalks, if that's another alternative way to kind of approach this problem, which is maybe crosswalks are great and I support them, but also the problem is people are driving too fast, and crosswalks are less of a big deal if traffic is driving slow enough that you can stop in time, that people are more visible, because, you know, when traffic is driving slower, pedestrians are a lot more visible, give people a lot more time to react. So I'm bringing that up because this is kind of an interesting situation where it's, you know, like I said, the policy is intended for a group of neighbors to get together and say, you know, it's a problem in our neighborhood. But this is an interesting situation where, you know, it's kind of surrounded by your business in this zone. So I'm curious, you know, in lieu of crosswalks, either through this traffic calming policy or otherwise, you know, is there a way where if your company was like, hey, you know, we can't sponsor building sidewalks up and down the street forever, but, you know, maybe we could sponsor adding some concrete in a choke point to to slow people down? Is that a thing that is hypothetically possible? It would be cheaper than, you know, building sidewalks up and down the street, obviously, because, you know, funding is always a thing. So I'm curious, you know, how that strikes you, first of all, for you, and also, you know, for you and the rest of the commission. I imagine we probably haven't done that sort of thing before, but I want to bring it up as an idea.
Is there a certain amount of signatures that you need for something like that?
I can refer you to the policy as it exists. If you Google Green Bay traffic calming policy, it'll show up on the city's website. Sure. You can review it on your own time if you'd like. He's got you already.
Okay.
But I do want to throw it out there as an idea.
Yeah, I mean, if we would try to put a choker or anything else in there, then we would definitely need sidewalks, because unlike what they did on the only street in the city of Green Bay, which is insane what they did in the Brown County did on Hazelwood, is they chokered it down, they put an island here and there, but with no sidewalks, the pedestrians now have to literally walk into the lanes of live traffic to get around those. You know, those bump outs.
Yeah.
It's different in the Legends District where we put our streetlights here and there,
Can you
but
tell
this
me
is a
where-
county trunk highway.
I'm having trouble visualizing. Can you tell me where that is? So I can look it up or bring it up. That would be better.
Yeah. You know, it was, but nobody wants to pay for sidewalks. So that's where it ends. It's just like, well, if you don't want sidewalks, but you want the traffic to go slower, so the county owns all of Hazelwood, or at least maintains it from Packerland all the way to Ashland. And so on this corridor between Wood Lane and Packerland, they installed these bump outs at most all intersections. But now, with no sidewalks, this pedestrian has to now walk out. There's a little bit of room here, a couple feet, but everywhere that they walk, they come back down into here and they're perfectly safe. But when they get up to the next one, they gotta walk back out and around, you know, all the way down the street.
For bicyclists too.
For a bicyclist too. What we had before that was a visually narrowed roadway, which was just a line, but no physical bump outs. But the county just kept getting hammered by the people living over there, and they just said, we're giving up. You know, even though you have Packer traffic and you have whatever, it's intermittent, but they still built it, and then they had to sign it because people over here were running over the damn island. You know, they're coming, you know, from the game, and they come down, and it's like, right lane must turn right, right lane must turn right, boom, you know, because the cross section of the road is not changed. All they did is rip out the corners and build these bump outs.
Well, there used to be 2 lanes there too.
Well, it was marked as a 2-lane facility. The county said if and when it ever needs to be built, or marked as a 4-lane, we'll mark it as a 4-lane. They did, and then they went over the top of those skip lines with a white line to say this is a non-usable lane. And then they went to the next step, which was to build these bump outs too. It will make the roadway feel narrower, and if, you know, one car's going 25, nobody can really pass them unless they really want to pass on the left. I mean, now you're talking about, you know, passing somebody like you would on a highway. and not too many people do that in residential areas, even on a street like Hazelwood. So one car goes 25, 30 miles an hour, and everybody behind them has to go that, because they go into the curb lane, they're gonna run into one of these bump outs, they pass on the left, that would be, it's a double yellow line. Well, there's violations. I mean, once you're speeding, what's the difference?
Yeah.
2 more,
Yeah.
3 more citations, just,
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because as an example of like a cautionary tale of like
Right.
what effects it might have. But I have seen, you know, designs, different types of designs. I have examples because I'm
Right.
here. But there's designs where the pedestrian does have, you know, some more, where designs where the cars would have a really hard time getting over it, the pedestrians and bicyclists.
oh,
can
no,
pass
yeah,
right
you
through.
could
Yeah.
you go with the tables
Right.
in the raised crosswalks.
Right.
But usually that, you know, down in Milwaukee, they've been doing it nonstop for the last 3
Right,
years.
right.
Where you go through Lakeshore Drive,
Mhm.
and the posted speed is 30, which people go that only when it's bumper traffic.
Right.
After that, they go, well, they just raised all the crosswalks, just that little
Right.
bit, just
Yep.
a hump, and then they can sign it
Yep.
and mark it, but they have crosswalks, they do have sidewalks, so they have the ability to say we can raise these up. It'd be hard to chicane a street that's a 60-foot, 70-foot right away and it's a straight street, and with all the utilities there, to say, let's just take this road out
Right.
and curve it up a little bit. You need a lot more right away to get some normal
Right.
curves in there.
Right.
And if you put
Yeah.
an island in the middle to kind of force them to the outside, I don't know. Alders know what their districts are, and that they're like, well, I don't want to give up, I don't want to make my constituents pay for sidewalks. I also don't want them to not have the ability to park on the street when they have company or rummage sales or all the other things that go on. I don't think there's a lot of people that park on the street.
Yeah.
It looks like most of the residents over there are side street access onto Reber, onto Burner, onto Wisey. There's
Yes.
not a whole lot other
Yeah.
than the trailer park that
Or
actually.
more north down
North,
there. Yeah,
right.
where the homes are more.
Right.
I kind of view something like that, if you're putting these bumpers and things of that nature, more of a challenge for these people, you know, they're traveling up and down, like,
Yeah.
it's a hazard or whatever.
Yeah.
But,
So
so I,
it sounds like we're offering 2 pedestrians,
Yes.
right?
I mean, right now, without having more, either recommendations from us to say we want to recommend to an INS to install sidewalks on both sides of the street from here to here, or, I mean, I don't know when that street is up for resurfacing or reconstruction next. That's when the public hearing, that's when the residents would actually show up and make their voice heard through the alder.
yeah.
When you ask them to do these traffic calming studies, and then they have to get 20% signatures, and then I go out and collect the data, and then I have police go and enforce it, and then I make sure speed limit signs and pedestrian signs, everything is up to snuff, lighting is all good, and police enforce it, the speed goes down. A month later, I go out there and take counts again and said, oh yeah, what police did and what we did, reduce that speed a little bit, and that's usually the end of it, because it has to meet that threshold, you know, of 30 miles an hour plus at the 85th percentile, for us to even consider going to INS and through our construction projects to make these, any well, you know, improvements within the right of way.
Yeah. Yeah, I was curious if hypothetically, not speaking for your company, if you had in this situation some kind of, you know, business sponsor that was willing to put up some or all of the funding, is that, you know, do we have any mechanism by which that can, you know, would change that process at all?
No, our process would be INS, and INS works under a budget.
Yeah.
And so if we started to get a whole bunch of these requests and have to put chicanes or any of these, and it starts adding up to serious dollars, then we would say, why isn't this street getting resurfaced? And it's like, well, it's either these 10 streets resurfaced or these side projects that you told us to do. You know, which one do you want us to tell us to do
Right,
more?
right, yeah.
You know, what's more important to
Under
you?
constraints, yeah.
Right, so,
Well, certainly signage, oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
Signage would be appreciated for sure. I mean, it's better than nothing. I don't know if those signs are like high vis, like, or high is kind of yellow that is.
Well, yeah, they're all
Pretty
diamond
good.
grade sheeted signs, so.
Yep.
And then I can put the bright side down the sign post, so at night you can see it a little bit more so.
And then, you know, putting some attention to the north of us there for where the kids load on the school bus would be like really good, school bus loading zone or slow down. You know, I don't know if a sign like that exists. I feel like it might, but at least something in that.
I mean, their school buses have flashing lights, they have stop signs that flip out if they need to.
Yeah.
There's only one location in the city of Green Bay that we have a school bus loading zone, even though we have 27 grade schools
Okay.
and whatever, and that's Indian Hill Drive, where we have 3 or 4 reverse curves, one after another, where we say school buses ahead with flashers on the outside.
Oh, sure.
So, I mean,
And
and that's a totally separate request. I think we're kind of getting off the track of a high-vis crosswalk at this location to pedestrians 4 blocks to the north, so.
Yeah, well,
Right,
here.
I mean, no, we can talk about
Yeah,
it, but I don't know that
Yeah,
we should really get into
yep.
And for the benefit of our new commissioner, INS stands for?
improvement service. Yeah, I'm sure, yeah.
Is there any possibility of, like temporarily putting, if you see these radars with your speed is and it flashes, you know, I've seen them like chained to telephone poles,
Yeah, that's what,
it'll flash the blue and the red.
yeah, that's what Green Bay PD puts out to do, you know, prior to enforcement, to try to identify what time the speeders are there, so they don't go out there and sit there with an officer for 8 hours and say, well, there's nobody here, and they say, oh, it seems like regularly, we set this thing up for a week, and between 3 and 5, you know, we got some people that are coming home from work or going out to the bars or whatever they're doing, that's when they're there, and so that's when they, but then again, they use that to find out that there is a problem
Sure.
first, and on the miles and miles of streets that we have, you know, you say Edgewoods and Alpines that are carrying 3,000, 4,000, 6,000 cars a day, trumps a street like Baird that's probably carrying closer to 1,500, maybe, you know. But,
Okay, yeah, no, just while I'm here, it'd be great to ask those questions.
You know, they're pretty slick.
Thank you, Chair. I think just to move this along, I think if I would recommend, I would be in favor of having those 2 pedestrian signs. I think that would fit the need for now, and then maybe you and I can be in contact in the future to talk about if your company has any appetite for putting in sidewalks, which I know is an expense, but that really seems like the only path to traffic calming, or having a high-vis crosswalk. So I think do what we can do for now, and then look to the future later and keep having those conversations.
Absolutely.
Would be my recommendation.
Yep.
So, but you're the commissioner.
Motion to close the floor.
Second.
Second?
No, okay.
Was already closed.
We're still talking, so.
I know. So, could I get a motion?
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
To everyone. Appreciate
I
it.
make a recommendation to put up the 2 signs, so refer to staff. And if speed boards are a question, they need to speak with their alder direct and talk to the police department.
Can I get a second?
Second?
All in favor?
Mike?
Any opposed? Perfect. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Really appreciate your time.
Thank you.
Hopefully those signs make a huge difference.
Any difference would be appreciated, so, thank you.
All right. Initial request, consideration with possible action on the request by the Department of Public Works Traffic Division to modify number of travel lanes on North Quincy Street from Eastman Avenue to Radisson Street.
I'll make a motion to suspend the rules to take up item 4 and 5 and one roll call.
Is
They're
6
both the
to?
same. Is 6 the same?
it's all related to the railroad tracks along Quincy Street.
Then 4, 5, and 6.
Excellent.
Second.
Second.
I'll
Anyone?
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All right. I'm gonna give this one to you, Tom.
You know, so the OCR has got recommendations for the city to do something on Quincy Street with the number of near misses and accidents that have occurred at both the skewed crossings up here south of Vanderbrack and closer to Radisson. they're questioning whether the city was allowed to build that as a 4-lane facility back in the 80s, to the point of we may have to rip out the road and make it a 2-lane. So what we offered the railroad is to paint that outside lane. Quincy Street is a street that carries both the same number of vehicles, 2,000, 2,500, up and down it, and it can function fine as a 2-lane facility. We had thought at one time about taking from the center line and painting the 2 northbound lanes and shifting all the traffic to the west side and making that 2-way. It would give the little bit more room between the tracks and the vehicles, but it doesn't give us enough room. No matter how far we move the road to the west, it doesn't move it far enough that a semi-truck would be off of the tracks. So our compromise is to close these 2 outside lanes, and the railroad said that they would be happy with that. So that's the lane modifications for those streets. And then Eastman Avenue, we would put up concrete barriers across the street here, and this section of the road would then be closed, and we would put up concrete barriers here to stop traffic from going through. The railroad would then come back and put beam guardrail up and put end of road markers, and it would be the next motion. After we do a trial closure, or we approve it tonight, we'll barricade it up after council approves our report, and then planning, and we'll look at vacating and closing. The railroad ultimately wants a document, official document from the city saying that these roads are closed to traffic. And that's not just traffic, bike and ped, closed to traffic kind of temporarily. It's physically closed with a beam guardrail not to be opened again, take them off the official city map. So that would be Eastman, and then Vanderbreck would be basically 2 lines of concrete barriers. One basically just an extension of Quincy Street's curb line, and the other one just far enough off the tracks to not interfere with the railroad, let's say 25 feet east. There's a couple of small shop operators over there, we want to maintain access to them. And then put up dead end signs. I do all the signing, we just need the official permission to do a trial closure of Eastman between Jackson and Quincy, a trial closure of Vanderbreck at the railroad crossing, and a modification in the pavement markings to reduce Quincy's travel lanes from 4 to 2 between just south of Eastman to just north of Radisson.
Oh, this one's a first. All right.
Would the temporary and the permanent closure be structured in such a way that you could still ride a bike through it?
You could still ride a bike through it, and we may, Steve Grenier, who was here before, was opposed to creating a bike lane. We've always wanted a bike lane from downtown to Bay Beach. You don't like bikes to cross skewed crossings, but there's worse things. I mean, I see, again, Milwaukee has them all over. They just put a skewed track and they show bikes, so the bike just kind of goes up and tries to cut across it as best they can, or just know that they're going to cross a set of tracks. But since we're killing 2 lanes of traffic, we have excess concrete, I mean, the railroad hasn't pushed us and the OCR hasn't. We have to present this to the railroad and the OCR together, and they have to accept our plan, which they'll accept this part of it, but they may physically still require us to rip out the road, which is millions, to redo the curb and gutter on both sides of the street for, that distance, and move all the inlets and everything else. We're trying to avoid that, but we also want to make it safe. These crossings going into these plants are, motorists just aren't, sometimes they're racing the trains to beat them, and other times they're the guys were in town last week too, and looked at it and said, yeah, you guys are red flags are showing up in the city of Green Bay with the most crashes, per the state, is because of the 3 or 4 that we've had here recently. So this is our temporary solution that we're working out with the Office of Commissioner of Railroads and Foxy and Watco, the owners of the railroad tracks. And it's a start. They're happy that we're at least starting to modify the crossings.
I'll make a motion to approve as recommended by staff.
Second?
I second that.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Perfect. Passes.
Well, we don't close down too many roads.
No, that's why I was like, it's
And
first.
and they wanted a few more, but we gave them these two. They're still pushing heavy for Wisey, and the business district over there has had meetings and said, we'll give you, Radisson's the big one up there. That's the one that carries the most traffic with Green Bay Packaging being right there, and they got 2 plants. And then Wisey goes right over by, the food dispensary and St. Vincent de Paul. So that one was a hard one to give up. So we just started with the 2, but they want more. As many crossings as they can get, street crossings as they can get to close, they would like.
Well, like you said, it's a start.
Yeah,
It's a
sounds
start
like a good
between us, the
compliment.
railroad, and the OCR to say the city's moving in the direction they want to see us moving. I just don't know if they can force us to move any further to
Right.
start putting up gates and crossbucks and all kinds of stuff. And I think the railroad said each active crossing with the wigwags and a gate is $850,000 starting. And that was a couple years old, so they think it's over $1 million. And I don't know who pays for that. If the city has to pay, to do it, because it's our traffic, we have to stop. If it's the businesses, because these are spur lines going in there to service those businesses, or if it's a railroad, I don't get into the money part of it. I just say, what do you want me to do with my traffic? I deal with this, I deal with the cars and the bikes and the heads.
Well, hopefully this makes them happy for a good chunk of time. So our next meeting will be September 15th. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion?
In a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
I love it. Any opposed? All right, okay, and we are adjourned. Thank you guys so much for your time this evening. Enjoy the rest of the night.
Jesse, I second your intention to make a more bikeable path down to Bay Beach.
That would be so cool.
Families go traveling across the city.
I ride my bike down many streets. And
I was
I'm
gonna
like,
say, I